Hello and thank you for joining me in this Mind Mastery video. Today I wanted to explore a relationship or building a relationship with our unconscious, and what is the whole point in doing that? What is the whole point in considering our unconscious in our development, in making choices in our life, and generally moving forward? So first of all, I'd like to define the unconscious. So how do I understand the unconscious? From my perspective, the unconscious compromises everything that Carl Jung or other psychoanalysts were talking about. So various archetypes, so patterns embedded within our culture and how they affect us personally and how they influence our behavior, but also personal kind of forgotten memories or schemas that kind of sneakily influence our behaviors on a day-to-day basis. So our beliefs, our ways of interpreting our experiences. So, we rarely, sit down and reflect on, all right, my beliefs are this and this and that. We don't do this. We don't make lists like this. But our beliefs and interpretations and the ways we perceive things, they come out in this very kind of subtle ways, where, especially when we don't reflect on our perception or on our understanding, that's where this unconscious patterns can come out in many different situations. So that would be one bit of the unconscious. But for me personally, there's also this kind of mysterious or mystical or spiritual component that exists within the unconscious or defines the unconscious itself. So Carl Jung has talked about the self itself as this major or central archetype, this unifying archetype that is central to the unconscious processes, that guides our actions, that strives towards totality, and influences our life to a point where we are on this path or the spiral of development, regardless whether we choose to do so or not. But we constantly move, we constantly pass towards the stages. And from this perspective, our struggles or the problems that we might experience are a result of not allowing ourselves to go through this spiral, this stages of development, this kind of circles within circles that direct our actions and provide us with an opportunity to become who we can truly be. We know that there might be several problems resulting from the unconscious itself in a way. So originally psychoanalysts called these problems as, for example, neurosis or psychosis. So in neurosis, which is kind of umbrella term that defines struggles such as anxiety or depressions, we now know that this is anxiety, this is depression, this is personality disorder. But years ago, when psychoanalysis was developing, neurosis was this umbrella term for all these mental health difficulties, all these emotional reactions, these emotional struggles that a human can go through, which was caused, eventually, that's what they believed in, which was caused by something in the unconscious. It could have been a complex. It could have been a kind of conflict between different parts of our personality. We now know, in modern terms, that, as I've said, there might be a personality disorder, there might be unresolved trauma, there might be some unprocessed emotions. So we can see the power our unconscious can have on ourselves. In modern terms, we could also say that there are different schemas that direct our behaviors, different beliefs, different patterns of relating to other people, which we unconsciously adapted. So the unconscious itself, as you can see, has a tremendous power over our behavior, unless we consciously shed a light onto what's going on and where our actions are coming from and why are we doing certain things in our lives. So when we start paying attention to the reasons or to the potential causes of our behavior, we can see that there's way more to who we are as a person, because when you start considering different possibilities and different perspectives onto yourself, onto your behavior, onto your beliefs, onto your patterns of relating to other people, you can probably say that you're not always choosing what's happening to you or what's what decisions to make, right? So if we are not always choosing, then who's choosing for us? That would be a good question, because if we consider the powers of the unconscious, then we can see that it has way more power over our behavior than our conscious willpower. And a simple example here is changing a habit. Try to change a habit just with your willpower. It's extremely difficult. But once you start developing a new habit, it gets easier and easier and easier. Once you're getting this collaboration from your unconscious, things just go smoothly in a way, right? So effortlessly. You can move without so much effort, not as much effort at least as you've been putting on the beginning when changing a habit. As Carl Jung was reflecting, our unconscious could be even compared to the God himself in a way. And perhaps in these primitive cultures, when they were celebrating different forces in nature, they were celebrating actually the forces of the unconscious mind, whatever that is. And whatever it actually is contained within our personal minds. Because if you start reflecting on the boundaries of where you start and where you end, and where actually your unconscious starts and ends, because if you look at other people around you, they have their own unconscious. So is it separate unconscious, or does it belong to the same field? Because from your perspective, all unconscious is basically the same unconscious, regardless if it manifests within your own personal life or within personal life of other people. So I can see here how it is easy to make that connection that unconscious could be as powerful as God himself. So if we look at this analogy, we can see that if we kind of personify the unconscious, it would be possible to negotiate with it to some extent. And I think that's where processes like synchronicities come in, for example, or these meaningful coincidences, or Freudian slips, right? So when random things happen, but they make total sense to us, they might in fact feel like there is a bridge or synchronicity or a meaningful relationship between the unconscious and what we do. So the moment we start to kind of relinquish our own power, the more we start to listen to our own feelings, our instincts, and doing things that maybe don't really make sense to us at first, very often that's where things start unfolding positively in our life, because we allow this unconscious, this archetype of the self to manifest itself fully. Because if we only control everything, if we only try to control everything in our life, if we only exercise this conscious willpower and a desire to organize things and to control and to manage, we don't leave much space for the unconscious, for the spiritual and for this mystical part of human being as a whole to manifest itself, because we block it, we jam it with a conscious mind. So, of course, I'm not advocating for giving up our conscious willpower or conscious ability to make things happen, because, if we stop pushing forward, that's completely opposite extreme of what we need to do. So it is perhaps a question of a balance, developing a balance between our conscious will and what we can do, what we can control, and at the same time making space for that unconscious mechanisms to manifest themselves. Because, and it's not only about this mystical, this spiritual thing I was talking about, but also about learning more about ourselves. I mean, how do you expect to learn about your unconscious impulses, unconscious motivations, unconscious feelings, or memories, or traumas, if you jam everything with a conscious mind, right? So when you consciously, stick to things that you can't control, it doesn't allow much space for these unconscious things to come out, and which you can then examine, right? But the moment you kind of lean back a little bit or let go and allow these unconscious things to happen, that's where you can start examining yourself. So I think for this process to work, you need some level of self-awareness, because you need to constantly observe yourself. You need to constantly observe your feelings. And that kind of pushes you to this role of an observer, where you are an actor. You know that you are an actor, that you participate in all these experiences. But at the same time, you have this power to observe what's happening, and you have this power to examine what's happening. So essentially, building this relationship with unconscious is all about balance. And also, I think, about being able to go along with things that don't make sense to us, initially at least. So random impulses, random feelings, random kind of drives and motivations to do certain things without any purpose at all. So, for example, you might feel inclined to draw something, to go for a walk, to visit a very specific place. And it might not make any sense to you at all of why you need to do that. But once you start listening to these little things that don't make sense, that have no any conscious or logical reason, that's where you allow this unconscious processes to come out. Because then you also allow yourself to meet these other parts of you that perhaps have been blocked by this conscious mechanism, by controlling everything, by organizing things in your life. So I think it's an interesting subject to explore, and I think there's way more than, for example, most psychoanalysts say that, all right, unconscious is just our memories or traumas or feelings. But I think there is this underlying mechanisms, this underlying drive to push us forward, to push us towards this next stages of development. And I was talking in one of the videos already about this spiral path of development that we are on all in, and that we haven't really chose this path. We don't really have to do anything at all to be on this path in the first place, because everything is unfolding naturally. But one thing that I wanted to add is that listening to our unconscious and kind of tuning into this unseen and mystical and subtle realm of things that maybe don't really make sense to us at first could be super beneficial, because then we can meet different parts of ourselves. We can meet different mechanisms, different processes that exist outside of ourselves, outside of our conscious control. And that's where we can encounter this mystical realm of the unconscious. Once again, thank you very much for all your support. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time in the next video.